Okay, let's start with what's been happening over the last 14 days. It's been getting cold across Siberia. We've had more snow start to build up there. That's important. If you've been following the winter weather outlooks, we've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks, really. I mean, even going back into early August, because if you can get it cold here into Siberia, you get some October snow. There are studies, if we've talked about that too, that when you get it cold over here, you can develop more snow, more cold air, and I think that's when you start to freeze up the ice a little bit sooner and you can move that cold air across into North America. We're seeing it already. The last 14 days below average. Check this out. Let's go back to the last 30 days. It's even showing up here, but what's not showing up, look how warm it's been across Western Canada. We've seen way above average temperatures here, but just over the last 7 days, things are starting to change a little bit. Mostly across Alaska, we're starting to get cold, and we're starting to put a little bit of snow down across this region too. If you look at the temperatures, the actual numbers, let me go back to the 1 day period. So there we go. All of these colors that are sort of this bluish, that's temperatures that are below freezing. So we've certainly seen that expand over the last couple of weeks. Look where we were in August, and now look as we move into September and now into what will be now into early October. A lot of cold air starting to lurk here in the high latitudes as we've started to see that seasonal shift. Timestamp above me, we're looking back to 2023. This is how much snow was on the ground over here in Siberia. Notice Alaska into northern Canada. All right, that's 23. This is 2024. Here's where we are, I think yesterday, where we were yesterday, I should say. It's not where we are, it's where we were. More snow on the ground across Siberia. One thing I want to point out too, notice the ice cover that's right here. I think I read that NASA said going back to 1978, this is the 10th lowest ice area coverage across the Arctic. But I'm more interested in what's happening right here because look, that's 23, 24. Here's where we are right now. So there's a little more ice coverage. So think about it, guys. It's getting colder. We've talked about that already. You're probably going to start to see this freeze up more. And in fact, we've already flipped the switch now and we're heading toward winter, and that ice is starting to grow across this area. The melt is done and we're starting to freeze back up for winter, and it's going to go all the way down and, into Alaska, and we're going to see this entire continent get coated with snow, and the cold is on. And we're starting to see more snow show up across Alaska as we head through the next couple of days. We're looking way into the high latitudes. Of course, we've talked about the hurricanes, but look at the snow that's happening here across the North Slope into the Northwest Territories. It is cold up here. It may not be cold in Omaha. It may not be cold in Des Moines. It may not be cold in Minneapolis, but it's building, guys. Very warm, too, over the next couple of days. In fact, this week across the central U.S. Now, let me tell you what's going to sneak in. This is interesting. You've got this area of high pressure setting up here across the Northeast, and you're just going to wedge some of that cool air down into parts of the Northeast. I think even into parts of the Southeast, with temperatures dropping a bit below average this week. But watch the snow. Look at it, guys. Just continues to fall. Another big Alaskan storm as we head into now Sunday. Now, this is where the pattern starts to shift up, because now you bring your flow in out of the south across Alaska. You're starting to develop a ridge in the upper levels across this part of the region. And then look, you're getting a trough digging down. And right here, heading into next weekend, look at the snow trying to show up peppered here into the northern Rockies. This right here could be your front that drops your temperatures finally back down. I'm just going to say maybe near normal as we head into the upcoming weekend. Now, how far south will this go? I don't know just yet. We're getting pretty far out in time. But again, we're concentrating on the idea that it's going to keep snowing here. So there's more snow that's going to be added to this map, I think, as we look at our winter weather update next week. All right. So maybe you're just dropping by the live stream. We do a weekly winter weather outlook. This is a live stream. We normally don't do it in this format. So come on back. Usually it's on a Monday or Tuesday night. I've shifted back to Saturdays now. So subscribe, follow along, and we'll follow it together. Let's push this really far out in time. It's an operational run, but I want to show you what's happening and how the models are picking up on this, the European specifically, starting to show a much cooler weather pattern setting up. I think once we get toward the middle part of the month, this right here starts to feel like fall around the Great Lakes. At least temperatures start to come down somewhat. I don't think it's going to be enough to offset what's happening here as we head into September, or October rather, as we wrap up September. The Climate Prediction Center showing above average temperatures likely up towards the Great Lakes into the Northeast. In fact, a lot of the country just baking, I think, this month. And a lot of this is going to be offset by what's happening this week and maybe even into the first part of next week with some really warm temperatures. And it's going to be dry too. In fact, I hate to see this in some areas because we've been so dry into parts of Maine, into Vermont, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, many areas of the Midwest too. We could use some rain. We're starting to get active into the Pacific Northwest, so above average precipitation likely across this region just because of how that's all shifting up. And a quick look at the upper chart too. This really kind of explains what's going on too in the short term with this heat that we're seeing. I'm going to call it heat. It's October, and you guys are baking in some places into the 90s. You know, we've got some really warm weather on the way with numbers climbing well into the 80s. Pretty far north too, way up into Canada as well. We've got cold air, again, swinging around the Hudson Bay. Temperatures will be above average, I think, as we head through the 9th, 10th, and the 11th. There comes that cold air trying to slip into parts of the northern Rockies. So now we're going to see temperatures start to drop. Some snow starts to come into the forecast as we head toward the 10th, the 11th, the 12th. Okay, so... And look at this, lower heights than average with some cooler air moving into parts of the plains. We're looking really far out at the European deterministic, but some of the ensemble guidance also kind of pointing toward this overall shift as we head toward the middle of October. Let's go to Europe. Why in the world are we looking here? Well, let me tell you, I'm a big fan of when you look at winter forecasting, look at what's going on with Europe, and here's what we're seeing on that. This is interesting. You've got a huge upper low that swings down towards Italy. This is cut off from your large-scale pattern that's happening with the westerlies. But look at the cold that tries to build some chilly air as we head toward the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th, and I think that almost leads to the idea of why we potentially could see some cooler weather on the way around a couple of days after that toward the middle of October. How much above average are we talking? 20 to 30 degrees above average across parts of Canada, into parts of the northern plains. Temperatures stay above average all the way into the weekend. Look at this heat, guys. In fact, this is modeled data, but right here in the parts of Minnesota, parts of North Dakota, approaching, dare I say, 30 to 35 degrees above average. All right, some relief on the way with our front that moves through, but look, I want to show you something. This isn't going to be a lot cooler than average, even once it blows through, so we're just talking about maybe normal October temperatures, and then it gets warm again out ahead of the next front, and then we do stay relatively cool across the west. In fact, again, I think winter has an early, maybe an October start here with some pretty cold air moving in. All right. That's all I got for the live stream, guys. Again, and look, hey, how about that? This is an operational run. It'll change tomorrow, but you got some chances for this really shifting up as we head into the middle of the month. All right. See you guys next time. Have a great night. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support over the last year and a half, guys. And super excited to see 30,000 of you have subscribed. Appreciate your support. See you next time.